The signal from the deep. The vast expanse of Earth's oceans had witnessed countless battles, but no one could have predicted that humanity's greatest enemy would rise from the darkest depths, an abyss unexplored, untouched, and hiding something far beyond comprehension. At a top-secret naval facility in the middle of the Pacific, an emergency alert blared through the command center. A deep-sea sonar had detected an anomaly, something massive, larger than an aircraft carrier, moving at an impossible speed through the depths, thousands of meters below the surface. Admiral Ethan Graves, a battle-hardened veteran of the U.S. Navy, leaned over the operations table, eyes narrowing at the data scrolling across the screen. The numbers didn't make sense. "Is it a submarine?" asked Lieutenant Commander Sarah Collins, skepticism thick in her voice. "No way," the sonar technician muttered, sweat forming on his brow. "It's too fast. No known underwater vehicle moves like that. And it's not displacing water like it should." A deep silence hung over the room. Something wasn't right. "Sound the alarm. I want every available vessel deployed to this location now." Meanwhile, high above the Pacific, a squadron of P-8 Poseidon reconnaissance aircraft patrolled their usual route. Lieutenant Ryan Mitchell, lead pilot, had seen his fair share of strange sonar readings over the years, but this was different. "We're picking up a heat signature," said his co-pilot, frowning at the infrared display. "It's coming from deep below, too deep for volcanic activity." Ryan adjusted his headset. "Let's get a visual." The sensor feed lit up, revealing a structure emerging from the depths, a dark, smooth surface, massive in scale, reflecting the faint glow of bioluminescent life clinging to its hull. "That's not a sub," Ryan whispered. Before he could react, the aircraft shook violently. Warning sirens blared. "We're being scanned by an unknown energy source." From the depths, a brilliant blue light shot skyward, faster than any missile. Ryan only had a second to register the impossible sight before his screen turned static. His last transmission crackled through the radio waves before being cut off entirely. "We are not alone, and they're surfacing." Within minutes, the U.S. Pacific Fleet was mobilized. Aircraft carriers, destroyers, and submarines steamed toward the anomaly, accompanied by elite Navy SEAL teams and rapid deployment forces. Aboard the USS Ronald Reagan, Admiral Graves studied the tactical map as a red blip, larger than anything recorded in naval history, slowly rose toward the surface. "This is it," he murmured, "and I don't think we're ready." Miles beneath them, the ocean churned unnaturally as something colossal began to rise. The water boiled, and eerie blue lights shimmered along its surface. A structure, no, a warship of extraterrestrial origin, was awakening from the abyss. The invasion had begun. The first contact battle. The USS Ronald Reagan cut through the rolling Pacific waves, its crew on high alert as the anomaly surfaced. Radar, sonar, and every available sensor were trained on the massive structure breaching the ocean's surface. What rose from the abyss was beyond comprehension. A colossal alien vessel, unlike anything seen before, emerged from the depths. Its hull was dark, almost organic in appearance, a sleek yet unnerving blend of armor and living material. Pulsating blue bioluminescent veins coursed across its surface, emitting an eerie, rhythmic glow. The shape was vaguely triangular, but wrong. Angles shifted in ways that defied human understanding, as if the ship itself refused to be fully seen at once. For a moment, there was silence. Then the ocean ignited with violence. The first strike. "They're charging something," a radar officer yelled aboard the USS Ronald Reagan. From the alien vessel's hull, a dozen orbs of light detached, hovering in midair before shooting forward at impossible speeds. Within seconds, they slammed into the nearest destroyers, USS Chaffee and USS Higgins, reducing them to fireballs of twisted metal. "We're under attack. All hands, battle stations." Admiral Graves didn't hesitate. "Target that thing and fire everything we have. We are at war." The Pacific Fleet retaliated. A symphony of cruise missiles, railgun rounds, and torpedoes tore through the sky and sea, streaking toward the alien warship. The air was thick with the roaring thunder of explosions. But something impossible happened. As the weapons closed in, the alien vessel's surface rippled. The hull absorbed kinetic and energy-based attacks alike. Explosions fizzled into nothing, as if the ship simply refused to be harmed. Direct hits, zero effect, a weapons officer shouted in horror. The alien ship pulsed. From beneath its hull, massive, multi-limbed constructs unfolded, resembling biomechanical crustaceans. Each limb was a turret of pure energy, lancing beams of destructive force through the fleet. One beam struck the USS Stockdale, slicing it cleanly in half before its reactor detonated. Another vaporized an entire squadron of fighter jets mid-flight. Close combat. Navy SEALs engage. While chaos erupted at sea, an elite Navy SEAL team, call sign Spectre 1, had been deployed via stealth submersible. Their mission? Board the alien warship and gather intelligence. Inside the submerged section of the extraterrestrial ship, Commander Jason Holt led his team through an organic metallic corridor unlike anything human engineers had ever built. The wall seemed alive, subtly shifting as if observing the intruders. "Stay close, no noise," Holt whispered into his comm. Then they heard it. A sound that wasn't a sound, a voice that bypassed the ears and spoke directly to the mind. Intruders detected. Analysis. Biological entities, inferior. Solution, terminate. Suddenly, the walls peeled open like an iris, and from the darkness they emerged, the first wave of alien warriors. Towering bipedal creatures, encased in what appeared to be living exoskeletons, rushed forward. Their bodies were unnervingly slender, their faces obscured by featureless insectoid masks. Each held weapons that resembled shifting energy blades, warping reality as they moved. "Contact! Weapons free!" Holt barked. The SEALs opened fire, their armor-piercing rounds ripping into alien flesh, but the creatures barely flinched. The wounds they sustained sealed instantly, and with unnatural speed, they lunged. A SEAL was impaled before he could react, his body lifted and tossed aside like a rag doll. Another screamed as an alien blade phased through his armor, severing him cleanly in two. "Fall back, now!" Holt hurled a thermite charge, setting the corridor ablaze before sprinting back toward the extraction point. They were outmatched. But as he turned a corner, he saw something worse. A massive chamber filled with rows upon rows of humanoid pods, each containing a captured human soldier, or what used to be human. Some were alive, their eyes darting wildly, their mouths moving in silent screams. Others had been transformed, their bodies twisted into something unrecognizable. "Dear God," Holt whispered. That's when the largest alien they'd seen yet stepped into the chamber. 7 feet tall, draped in a biomechanical exosuit, its pulsing blue eyes locked onto Holt. Unlike the others, it spoke. "You are too late, human." The war had only just begun. The counterattack begins. The USS Ronald Reagan was burning. Columns of smoke and fire rose from the ruined sections of the carrier as the battle raged across the Pacific. The alien warship had devastated half the fleet in minutes, shrugging off missiles and torpedoes as if they were nothing. The skies were filled with the shrieking howls of fighter jets weaving through the inferno, dodging beams of pure destruction while desperately searching for a weakness. On the bridge, Admiral Graves gritted his teeth, gripping the railing as another explosion rocked the ship. "Damage report. Flight deck compromised. Portside missile batteries offline. We're getting torn apart, sir." "Then we hit back harder," Graves snarled. "Tell the submarines to ready the doomsday package. We're taking the gloves off." Navy SEALs. Escape from hell. Inside the alien vessel, Commander Jason Holt and his team were running out of time. Behind them, the monstrous alien warrior, its biomechanical armor glowing with unreadable runes, stepped forward with deliberate menace. Its voice echoed through the ship's corridors, not through sound, but directly into the minds of every human present. "You are fragile. You should have stayed in your waters. Now you will drown in the stars." Holt raised his rifle and emptied an entire magazine into the creature's chest. The rounds hit but did nothing. The wounds stitched themselves back together, the armor shifting like liquid metal to seal the damage. "Jesus Christ, fall back," Holt barked. The SEAL team sprinted for the extraction point, detonating thermite charges along the way. engulfing the halls in flames. But the creature did not stop. It walked through the fire, absorbing it, the runes on its armor burning brighter. Bullets don't work. Explosives don't work. What the hell does? If we make it out of here, I'll let you know. Ahead, they saw their only hope of escape, an emergency airlock leading to the ocean. But just as they reached it, an alien energy spear came flying, skewering one of the SEALs clean through the chest. Holt turned, eyes filled with rage as he watched his man's lifeless body crumple. Go! He roared. He yanked a dead man's switch from his fallen comrade's belt and activated the last failsafe, a miniature nuke. The rest of the team dove through the airlock, crashing into the black depths of the Pacific as the alien chamber erupted behind them in a fiery inferno. For a moment, there was nothing but silence, the ocean swallowing them whole. Then the shockwave hit, the fleet's last stand. Above the water, the USS Jimmy Carter, a Seawolf-class nuclear submarine, had been shadowing the alien warship, waiting for the right moment to strike. The moment was now. Launch the Doomsday package. From the depths, the submarine fired its deadliest payload, a low-yield nuclear torpedo designed to detonate on impact. The torpedo sliced through the water, beeping faster and faster as it locked onto the alien ship's exposed underbelly. For the first time, the enemy reacted with urgency. The alien vessel tilted violently, its form warping as it attempted to phase out of existence. But it was too slow. The nuke detonated, a searing white light flooding the ocean. A shockwave blasted outwards, creating a towering wall of water that swallowed everything in its path. On the bridge of the USS Ronald Reagan, Admiral Graves shielded his eyes as the alien vessel buckled under the impact. For the first time, it was wounded, but then it screamed, a noise that shattered eardrums and cracked glass, a sound that wasn't sound, but pure, raw psychic agony. The entire crew collapsed, clutching their heads as the wave of mental torment surged through the fleet. Men screamed, blood pouring from their noses, their minds filled with visions of alien horrors. In the chaos, the alien ship began to change. Its structure split apart, not breaking, but evolving. From within, a second form emerged, more monstrous, more adapted. Its original warship had been a disguise, a husk. Now it shed its outer shell, revealing something far more dangerous. A living dreadnought, pulsating with energy, now hovered above the Pacific like a god reborn. Admiral Graves's breath hitched. My God, what have we woken up? The battle was far from over. The war escalates, the Pacific was burning. The alien dreadnought, now fully awakened, hovered above the ocean like an eldritch nightmare, pulsating with an unnatural glow. The nuke had failed to destroy it, only forcing it to shed its disguise and reveal its true form. Admiral Graves, struggling to stay on his feet, wiped the blood from his nose. His entire crew had barely survived the psychic onslaught. Sir, what do we do? A trembling officer asked. Graves took a deep breath, his mind racing. They had hit the enemy with everything they had, and it hadn't been enough. We call in reinforcements. He turned to the communications officer. Send a Priority 1 distress signal to all remaining U.S. fleets. Put it in the clear. Every nation, every ship with a gun needs to hear this. The war for Earth has begun. The creature awakens. On the ruined deck of the USS Ronald Reagan, Commander Jason Holt and his surviving SEALs climbed out of the wreckage, coughing up seawater. Holy hell, now, what is that thing? One of his men muttered, staring up at the monstrous alien ship. Holt pulled himself to his feet, gripping his rifle. It's not a ship anymore, he said grimly. It's alive. The alien dreadnought shifted, its massive tendrils extending, reaching toward the fleet. Then it spoke. You were never meant to resist. You were never meant to exist. The voice wasn't sound. It bypassed the ears, drilling directly into the skulls of every human in range. A crushing pressure wrapped around their minds like a vice. Crew members collapsed to their knees, screaming, blood trickling from their eyes and ears. Admiral Graves gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stay conscious. All ships, fire at will. The global response, half a world away, military command centers in Washington, Beijing, London and Moscow intercepted the distress signal. For the first time in history, rival superpowers dropped their conflicts. "We are looking at an extinction-level event," the U.S. Secretary of Defense announced. "All assets are green-lit for immediate deployment." Within minutes, aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines, and stealth bombers mobilized worldwide. The world's most advanced weapons were now aimed at the Pacific. The battle for Earth was no longer just America's fight. The Battle of the Pacific. The ocean exploded with fire. From the skies, squadrons of F-35s and B-2 bombers dropped payloads of bunker-buster missiles, their warheads slamming into the dreadnought's fleshy, armored hull. From beneath the waves, nuclear submarines launched torpedo swarms, their warheads programmed to detonate on impact. And from the surface, the combined firepower of U.S., Japanese, British, and Australian destroyers unleashed a hellstorm of missiles and railgun slugs. The alien beast responded. Its organic armor shifted, absorbing the impact of each strike, its body self-repairing at a terrifying speed. Then it lashed out. Tendrils of pure energy shot out from its body, piercing through the fleet like lances of molten death. A Japanese battleship was sliced clean in half, the ocean swallowing it in seconds. A Russian submarine was crushed as the beast's psychic scream ripped it apart from within. An entire squadron of fighter jets detonated midair as their pilots' brains melted under the aliens' telepathic assault. Admiral Graves watched in horror as the entire combined fleet, the strongest force humanity had ever assembled, was being obliterated. "Nothing's working," he muttered. "We're barely slowing it down." But then, something changed. Finding the weakness deep inside NORAD, a team of scientists was frantically analyzing the aliens' biology. One of them, Dr. Evelyn Carter, suddenly went pale as she studied the readings. "Admiral Graves, patch me through to your comms. I found something." A moment later, her voice blared over the fleet's radio channels. "Listen carefully. The alien isn't just alive, it's connected to something. Its body is regenerating because it's pulling energy from somewhere else." Graves gripped the radio. "Where?" Dr. Carter's hands flew over her console. "It's drawing power through a rift. We're not fighting just a ship. We're fighting an invader from another dimension." The Admiral's blood ran cold. "How do we kill it?" Dr. Carter hesitated, then whispered, "We close the rift. We cut it off from its power source." "And how do we do that?" Dr. Carter swallowed hard. "You're not going to like the answer." The final option? Back aboard the USS Ronald Reagan, the Admiral listened as Dr. Carter explained her plan. She was right. He hated it. "You want me to detonate a nuke in the stratosphere?" "Not just any nuke. A specialized EMP warhead. It's the only thing that might destabilize the rift and shut it down." Graves exhaled. "If this doesn't work?" Dr. Carter looked him in the eyes. "Then we all die." Graves nodded grimly. "Get it done." The endgame begins. The B-21 Raider, America's most advanced stealth bomber, was already in the air, armed with the last remaining EMP warhead. Its pilot, Captain Reynolds, knew the stakes. "Confirming target coordinates. High-altitude detonation. No second chances." "Copy that, Captain," came the Admiral's voice. "Drop the package." Reynolds pressed the release. The bomb fell. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a second sun ignited in the sky. A colossal wave of electromagnetic energy surged outward, slamming into the alien dreadnought like a divine hammer. The effect was instantaneous. The rift began to collapse. The alien beast body convulsed, its tendrils snapping like whips as it screeched in agony. Then, for the first time, it stopped regenerating. Graves saw his chance. "All units, fire everything!" The combined forces of humanity unleashed one final devastating barrage. Railgun slugs punched through the creature's weakening armor. Tomahawk missiles tore into its core. A final torpedo from the USS Jimmy Carter pierced its exposed heart. The dreadnought howled one last time, then collapsed into the ocean, sending a massive tidal wave rolling across the Pacific. The battle was over. Aftermath. As the ocean settled, Admiral Graves stood on the deck, watching the burning remains of the alien vessel sink beneath the waves. Commander Holt limped to his side, bruised and battered, but alive. "So, Did we win? Holt asked. Graves exhaled. We survived. Holt nodded. Close enough. Far above them, the sky was still rippling, remnants of the now collapsed rift slowly fading into the void. But something about it felt unfinished, because somewhere out there, beyond the rift, something had been watching, and now it knew humanity existed. The final reckoning. The Pacific was silent. For the first time since the battle began, the ocean was still. The wreckage of war, burning husks of ships, shattered aircraft, and the twisted remains of the alien dreadnought floated across the waves. Smoke rose into the heavens, where the remnants of the collapsed rift flickered like a dying star. The war was over, or so they thought. The aftermath. On the deck of the USS Ronald Reagan, Admiral Graves stared into the churning abyss where the alien horror had finally sunk. His uniform was torn, his face streaked with blood and sweat, but he was still standing. "Damage report?" he asked, his voice hoarse. The response came from a battered officer. 70% of the fleet is either destroyed or heavily damaged. Casualties in the tens of thousands. But sir, we won. Graves didn't reply. His gaze was locked onto the sea. Something felt wrong. Commander Holt limped toward him, still clutching his rifle. "Admiral, we need to call in recovery teams and get the wounded off these ships. What's the holdup?" Graves didn't answer. His instincts, the ones that had saved him time and time again, were screaming. Something wasn't right. "Where's the black box?" The entire bridge went silent. Every modern warship carried an event recorder, a black box that captured real-time battle data. But the alien dreadnought, a creature of war, had to have something similar. Holt frowned. "Sir? That thing wasn't just a ship. It was a living being, a biological weapon. Something that big, that powerful, didn't act alone. It was controlled, guided." He turned to the communications officer. "Send a dive team. I want any part of its remains recovered. There's something down there." The dark secret beneath the waves. 3 hours later, a deep-sea reconnaissance drone descended into the wreckage of the alien husk. The creature's remains still pulsed with a faint, eerie glow, its tendrils drifting in the cold abyss. As the drone scanned its remains, its cameras flickered. Something was still active. "Sir, I've got something." Dr. Evelyn Carter, patched into the feed from NORAD, leaned closer. The drone's camera zoomed in on a glowing, spherical organ, still pulsing. Carter's heart stopped. "That's not a body part," she whispered. "It's a beacon." The transmission thousands of miles away, inside a classified deep space surveillance station, technicians stared in horror as their screens lit up with warnings. "Something just broadcast from Earth. Source? The Pacific, from the wreckage of the alien ship. Where's it sending?" The technician's voice shook as he looked up. "Deep space." Silence. Then one final message blinked across the screen. "Transmission successful. Received. Response incoming." The world holds its breath. News of the transmission was immediately classified. In the Oval Office, the President of the United States sat surrounded by his top military advisors, intelligence officers, and scientists. Dr. Carter stood at the head of the room. "The battle is over, but we triggered something. That beacon wasn't calling reinforcements. It was reporting." The chairman of the Joint Chiefs leaned forward. "Reporting what?" Carter hesitated. Then she played the final decrypted message intercepted from the beacon. The translation chilled everyone in the room to the bone. Phase 1, assessment complete. Phase 2, retaliation imminent. The final revelation. Deep in the cold void of space, something stirred. Beyond the edge of the solar system, the true architects of the invasion watched. The first creature was merely a scout, sent to measure the strength of this new world. Now they had their answer. The humans had fought back. They had won. But that was never the real test. The final phase was about to begin. And this time, humanity wouldn't be facing a single entity. This time, they would face the full force of an empire. Epilogue. The final stand begins on the deck of the USS Ronald Reagan. Graves and Holt stood shoulder to shoulder, looking at the fading light of the Pacific. "Do you think they're coming back?" Holt asked. Graves didn't answer. He didn't have to. Above them, the night sky was shifting. Stars were moving. No, not moving. Arriving. The war for Earth was far from over, and this time humanity would not be caught off guard.